Hi and welcome back to the channel. A couple of announcements before I get into the movie haul. First one is the second part of my 1970s Hidden Gem science fiction movie video is coming out on Saturday my time. So this is not that video. It's going to be on Saturday, so please bear that in mind. First off, we've got to 2,000 subscribers on this channel. I got to 1,000 subscribers at the beginning of January and we're now at 2,000. This is going crazy and it's all thanks to you guys. You're the ones subscribing, not me. So I'm just putting out stuff and waffling about movies and you're putting some faith in me, and thank you very much for that. It's surprising, it's also heartwarming, and thank you. And for all the people who leave comments as well, thanks for that. Even the people who talk about smuggling VHS tapes in their bowels for some reason. And yes, I did get a comment like that. So thank you very much for that. The channel is doing really well. The last video, the one about the hidden gems of 1970s science fiction, has done exceedingly well. And kind of gives me an idea of which direction the channel should be going in. So anyway, moving right along. Thank you again, and we'll get on with the movie haul. And as always, I've been buying movies. Physical media rocks. We'll start out with an old classic. It's a 1930s romance directed by Joseph von Sternberg, starring Gary Cooper, Marlene Dietrich, and Adolphe Menjou, and it is Morocco. Not to be mistaken for Road to Morocco, which is an entirely different movie. But this one, classic 1930s Marlene Dietrich movie. Just as she hit Hollywood after having some success in Europe with The Blue Angel and things like that. But yeah, I haven't seen this one for a long time, and I'm looking forward to doing that because I like a good old-fashioned Marlene Dietrich movie. I still haven't watched A Foreign Affair, which is the movie she did with Billy Wilder after the war, the movie with Jean Arthur in it. But Morocco, I want to see again. This is the Umbrella edition, put out here in Australia, and Umbrella Entertainment are doing some really good stuff. They're putting out some more recent things. They're kind of in the interstitial part. They don't get the big studio stuff. They're doing really well mining the older movies and picking out the gems and delivering them to people in a physical format at a reasonable price as well. You don't get many extras in them, but they're all quality. There's no filler in this at all. Then we move on to one of the recent Imprint pressings of a 1977 action thriller starring Robert Shaw, Bruce Dern, Martha Keller, and it is Black Sunday. Not to be mistaken for the Marienbad movie, totally different film. This one's about a terrorist attack on a football stadium using the Goodyear blimp as the weapon of choice. It's really cool. The idea of the bomb is terrific, and yeah, it's a tight thriller. Lots of good action scenes. Some of the special effects aren't quite as good as you get in a modern movie because it was 1977. Kind of a very typical action movie of its time, but worth checking out. And this, of course, being an imprint, it has, let's see, audio commentary by film historian Stephen Prince. It's got an interview with film music historian Daryl Schweiger about the John Williams score. It's got a John Williams score. He didn't only make Star Wars in 1977. And a featurette about John Frankenheimer directing the movie. It is a John Frankenheimer joint. You should check this one out. And if you are into classic cinema at all, Imprint is the place to go for a lot of these things. I know Rage, that I did a review of a few videos ago, is another Imprint. And every time they announce their new movies, I look through them and go, okay, yeah, I want that. Not particularly interested in that, but this one is worth your time and you should really check it out because it's a good, honest 1970s thriller. So moving along to this one, which is from Arrow Academy. It's Olivier Assayas, Irma Vep, starring Maggie Cheung. It's from, let's have a look here, what year is it from? It's from 1998. French film. It's about a French film director who is directing a TV adaptation of Les Vampires, the old silent movie series that was done around the 19-teens. And he gets Maggie Cheung to play the main vampire, Irma Vep, which is, by the way, an anagram for vampire. And Maggie Cheung plays herself, or a version of herself, as the actress who comes into it. People have compared it to Day for Night, the Truffaut film. It's a movie about making movies in some ways. It's visually imaginative. Haven't seen it for a very long time, so I lost some of the detail, as you do when you see so many movies. But this one I'm looking forward to revisiting, and I picked it up through Zavi at a reasonable price, and it wasn't available in Australia by any other means. So good on Zavi for making this kind of stuff available, because we really need to be able to access the kind of outliers of cinema as much as we do the mainstream kind of things. Speaking of outliers, one of the great movies of a rebel film director, Sam Peckinpah, starring the immortal Warren Oates, Isela Vega, and Gig Young, and it is Bring Me the Head of Alfredo Garcia from 1974. If you haven't seen Bring Me the Head of Alfredo Garcia, you've got to see it. For me, it's one of Peckinpah's best. People like The Wild Bunch and other films more than this. I like The Killer Elite as well. But Bring Me the Head of Alfredo Garcia, with the kind of lovable, charismatic as hell acting of Warren Oates in it, is really, for me, one of his best films. It's got a romanticism to it, a tough guy kind of romanticism to it. It's filmed dynamically. It's got a lot of blood and guts, so there's a lot of action in there as well, but I really like the way the movie holds itself and the way that Peckinpah did it. I think that it's a gutsy movie. It's a bold movie. I remember when it first came out being grossed out by the head sitting on the seat of the car beside him, gradually attracting more and more flies in the bag it's in. For me, it's one of my favourite movies of that period of time. And I did see it in the cinema at the time, along with The Killer Elite. I saw that as well about a year later. But Bring Me the Head of Alfredo Garcia is one you should check out. And this is the Arrow video. And the reason I like it too is flip around cover. You can choose which version of the cover you want. I'm choosing the original artwork from the poster, but you can have that choice. And there's a whole bunch of special contents on it as well. There are little documentaries about Peckinpah. There's also a lecture about the movie as well, and some audio commentary again by Stephen Prince. But if you haven't seen Bring Me the Head of Alfredo Garcia, stop what you're doing, drop it there, don't pick the kids up from school and watch it, because it's a really great 1970s action film that you will come to love. I've got another version of this on DVD, but I wanted to get the upgraded version because it's one of those movies that you want the best possible version of once you fall in love with it. Again from the 1970s, in this case 1977, it's a movie that Quentin Tarantino loves. And it's one that's kind of an iteration on the Death Wish kind of thing. And it is Rolling Thunder from 1977, which is directed by John Flynn. It's got Tommy Lee Jones in it. It's got William Devane playing a Vietnam veteran who has a hook for a hand. His wife and kid, from whom he's estranged, are attacked and killed by a bunch of gangsters. And he and his mate, played by Tommy Lee Jones, go out to get revenge. That's all you need to know. It's a 1970s revenge film done really well. And I'm looking forward to revisiting this one. I haven't seen it since VHS days. I'm saying that about a lot of movies, but it's true. There are some movies that you can't really find a decent DVD pressing of from about the start of the century until now. And then suddenly they burst onto the scene in Blu-ray. You go, yes, I have to have that. And Rolling Thunder is one of those movies which I had to have. And yeah, I may well do a session of violent 1970s movies and do Bring Me the Head of Alfredo Garcia, Rolling Thunder, and just sit back and bask in the testosterone of it all. It's got a couple of special features, by the way. It's got interviews with William Devane, Tommy Lee Jones, and writer Paul Schrader and Hayward Gould. So it's got a script by Paul Schrader, which is great. Original theatrical trailer and TV spot, so it's not that much of a heavy, extras heavy kind of movie, but I really want to see this one again, and I'm going to. Moving right along, we're going back to the 1960s. We're staying in the cult realm, and I shouldn't bash things. Last time I knocked over the camera, so I shouldn't bash things as much as I did. But this one I like, and I watched it a couple of days ago and enjoyed it all over again. It's in wonderful black and white. One of Jack Hill's best movies, starring Lon Chaney Jr., amongst others. Spider Baby. If you haven't seen Spider Baby, it's a kick. Any movie that's got a theme song kind of sung by Lon Chaney Jr. is a movie that you have to see. It's basically about the Merry family, a family who, due to inbreeding, have a disease which over time means that as the people grow up, they regress to a childlike state and then to an animalistic state as they get older. And there are a whole bunch of the Merry families being looked after by the family chauffeur, played by Lon Chaney Jr., who's quite compassionate towards them. Distant family members come in to try to sell the house in which they're living, and things don't end well for some of them. It's not a gory movie by any means. It is very much a movie of the 1960s, and in the kind of censorship realm, it's very kind of mainstream, but it's kooky, it's weird. They've got two daughters who are teenagers who are just starting to be affected by Merry syndrome, and they in their own way are totally nuts. Sid Haig plays one of the older Merry family members, and he's really good in it, playing a guy who is really damaged by this genetic syndrome. It's a wonderful movie for that kind of late night drive-in feel, and if you haven't seen it, you should check out Spider Baby. I believe it is on Tubi. If you can't buy a Blu-ray, I believe it's on Tubi at the moment, and you should check it out because I think you might like it. Let's move along. Something modern, and I like DC animated feature films, and I thought I'd pick up this one, and it is Batman: Soul of the Dragon, which is one of the most recent of the Batman movies, and it's a bit of a disappointment. It's kind of an Elseworlds thing. It's an alternate universe Batman where he is trained in martial arts on a mountain in Tibet with a bunch of other people, including Richard Dragon and Lady Shiva, and they come up against ancient evil. Now, the good thing about this one too is that the main sensei, the Shifu, the old guy who teaches them martial arts, is voiced by none other than James Hong, and he is great in it. He's got to be at least 90 now. He's done so many movies. If you look at his IMDb page, you may be there for a week. But the voice acting is not too bad. Michael Jai White's in there, Mark Dacascos, Kelly Hu, and it's a very 1970s styling to it. It's meant to feel like an blaxploitation kung fu movie from the 1970s, but for me it kind of fails. I think that it takes some of the style from the era and emulates it, but it doesn't quite nail it. I was a little bit disappointed in this one, to be honest with you. Other people may see it differently, but me being so deeply steeped in 1970s exploitation, I just found it a little bit lacking. It sets itself up for a sequel should it wish to have one, and hopefully the sequel will work out better. But it's an interesting effort in some ways, but for me I just found it a little bit disappointing. So moving right along, I decided to get some kind of 1960s art house films about which I'd heard and which I haven't seen. And I'm not going to say too much about these because I haven't seen them yet. Some people have found them very annoying. I've looked at some reviews and people have found them annoying a little bit. The first one is Michelangelo Antonioni's L'Eclisse, starring Monica Vitti and Francisco Rabal. It's set in Rome. It's about a woman falling in love with a man and the relationship is doomed. I don't know too much about it, but I wanted to see this one because I really want to kind of backfill that part of my film education. That is 1960s European art house films. Don't know whether I'm going to like it or not. I may well love it, I may well not like it. But when I'm in the right mood, I'm going to dive into that. And probably at the same time, I will get Alain René's Last Year at Marienbad out of the way too. This one's a weird one. Some people said it's a little bit Twilight Zone-ish. It's about memory. It's about people meeting up at a large and beautiful resort. And one of them remembers having an affair with a woman the year before, but she doesn't remember it for some reason. Don't know too much about it, but Some people have taken the piss out of it in various ways, and some people love it. But again, it's one of those things where I'm filling out my film education by watching these movies, which might be a bit challenging at times. But I feel I've got to go there. So there they are together. Les Clis and Last Year at Marienbad. Looking forward to them, sort of, but I'm also feeling a bit daunted by them, to be honest with you. Now, moving right along. This one people have recommended to me because it's a Kurosawa gangster film I haven't seen. I know my good friend Grant Watson has recommended this to me, and I was only able to find a Thai version of it, a Thai DVD pressing, which has got English subtitles, and it's a very early Toshiro Mifune Akira Kurosawa joint, Stray Dog. Now, as I said, this is a Thai pressing of it, and it looks cool. The pictures I've seen of it are cool. Don't know much about the plot. I'm going in this one cold, and I always like doing that with Kurosawa movies of a certain vintage, not knowing too much about them. I did it with The Quiet Duel. I also did it with High and Low to a certain extent, and I'm looking forward to watching this one and just learning a little more about the early end of Akira Kurosawa's film career, and of course Toshiro Mifune's as well. You may be able to find a version of it if you're in other markets. You may be able to find a different version of it, but the Thai one I got for a ridiculously low price, even with postage, and from what I can see so far, it looks like it's a good pressing, so happy with that. Stray Dog is one I'm going to definitely check out soon, and as I say that, I know that the pile of to be watched, I really want to watch these movies, are getting bigger, so I'm going to have to work on that. And lastly, this is one nobody's heard about unless you're a New Zealander. It stars Cliff Curtis, who is a New Zealand actor who is mostly in American television movies and television series, and nobody knows he's a Maori from New Zealand. And it's a comedy about a guy who's living in a country town, a guy called Billy Williams. He's decided he's going to help out with the local town Jubilee, but everybody in town knows that Billy doesn't succeed in anything he does. His marriage is kind of slightly on the rocks. He's a lovable loser, and Cliff Curtis is great in this. It's very much a New Zealand film, and learning more about New Zealand Maori culture is kind of interesting to me. It's from the year 2000, and it's a movie called Jubilee. I had to track this one down on eBay because there just weren't any copies of it available. It wasn't available on a streaming service. I did see it once on television around 2003, 2004, and kind of fell in love with it. It's almost like an Ealing comedy. It's got that kind of folky, down-to-earth feel of an Ealing comedy, but set in New Zealand in the year 2000. It's a lovely little hidden gem of a comedy, and if you can get a hold of it, you should. If you're from New Zealand and you know more about it than I do, please drop me a line on the comment section and let me know what you think. But I'm going to revisit this one. It's going to be one of my cheer-up movies when I need it. And if you can find a copy of it, definitely have a go at Jubilee. It's got a good heart, and that is a hard thing to do in a movie. Sometimes people try really hard to have a heartfelt comedy and fail, but this one succeeds. It's got a lot of guts to it. It's got a lot of ticker, and you should definitely check it out. So that's the haul at the moment. I'm really happy with them. I'm happy with the diversity of them as well. A wide range of films there from a wide range of eras, and it's been really great acquiring them and just knowing that they're there waiting for me to watch. But anyway, thanks again for watching. As always, if you care to, please subscribe, like, hit the notification bell and leave a comment. You can support the channel as well by going to patreon.com/paleocinema and donating a little money towards the upkeep of the channel. As always, look after yourselves. Get the jab. Wear a mask above your nose. Watch good movies, watch bad movies, watch quirky little movies nobody knows about, because that's always fun. And I'll catch you next time.